if all they hear is if you're not going to 12-step meetings, if you're not working with a sponsor, if you're not doing step work, if you're not going to meetings, then you're going to relapse and you're not in recovery. Well, then they're going to accept that for what it is. And they're just like what I did was I went out for 10 years after that, right? When it was implemented, like when the 12-step programs were created, there was really only two other options. You can go to jail or you can go to insane asylums. Mm-hmm. So this is where you and I have massive agreements on this, right? Is that the viability of long-term use of these medications can be detrimental to a person, right? And this is where really showing people why good diet and exercise is super important because
3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to Crazy Gutsy. Today we're going to zoom into the world of addiction and explore different approaches to treatment. We're going to focus on alternative approaches to addiction that looks at addiction as a way of self-medicating that addresses the lack in the body. Joining us today is Matthew Handy, one of the founders of Harmony Grove Behavioral Health, drug and alcohol treatment facility in Houston, Texas, with a groundbreaking way of dealing with addiction and mental health. Matthew, should I call you Matt?
Either one.
Either one. Okay, I like Matthew.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
No problem. Thank you.
Before the show, we were talking about how your approach is different from a 12-step program. And I appreciated what you said about how recovery is debt. And that really resonated with me because I think we all do better when we have some sense of purpose and somebody to be accountable to. How do you incorporate that mindset into the way you work with your patients?
So typically the way that we approach it is we treat the individual, right? And so if they identify with a specific pathway, we'll never tell them no, right? So if they want to do a 12-step program, we'll support them in that. But today's day and age, like more people are rejecting religious structures so much more often. And the introduction to the 12-step program is typically like a religious experience. And so you see it less and less where people are choosing the 12-step program as their preferred route to really handle their recovery. And the thing about it is, like, my executive director, he didn't go to meetings for the first 8 years of his life, of his recovery, but through his recovery, it led him to that, right? And so that is really how we're trying to treat it, where if you're not willing to accept that pathway, let's do what we can to get like a good foundation of recovery underneath you and maybe lead you back to that, right? And so it isn't that we don't think it doesn't work. We just think that not a lot of people are choosing that. And it's like, if all they hear is if you're not going to 12-step meetings, if you're not working with a sponsor, if you're not doing step work, if you're not going to meetings, then you're going to relapse and you're not in recovery. Well, then they're going to accept that for what it is. And they're just like what I did was I went out for 10 years after that, right? I was told if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you can't be a part of us. And I took it at face value and didn't even try recovery for 10 years. And so we are trying to prevent that from happening, where we say, okay, we're not going to force you to go to meetings, right? If you're not comfortable there, if you're not feeling like you fit in, or for whatever reason, because as addicts, we use justification as a tool, essentially, to continue with our, terrible choice making, but then also to like be able to point at it and say, well, a lot of people will be like, oh, well, that's a cult. I don't fit in. They don't accept me. I'm treated a certain way. And it may all be true in their mind, but any justification is a good justification to continue to use if you want to. And then we see like another, phenomenon where it's like the person who is ready to stop using will do, like, if they're actually in that position where they're like, I don't ever want to do this again, they don't even need to go to treatment. They'll just do whatever they need to do, right? Treatment is always a really good option to like get your feet underneath you and like get put on the, like, directionally on the right path. But we in the space, right, in the treatment industry, recently, like in the last few years, it's been called the multiple pathway approach. And really, that's what we're adopting. We're adopting the multiple pathway approach so that the people who are not fitting into this mold of going to 12-step meetings, for whatever reason, we can say, well, okay, there's another answer, though. right? Let's take our experience and our suffering and let you benefit from that. And by that I mean I've got a wide variety of staff, and none of us are on the same recovery pathway. We all do something different. Um,
Yeah, I think you were telling me that you had a monk.
yeah, we call him our monk, but he goes to like religious retreats and like goes to monasteries for extended periods of time and like worships with monks and like does that. He's really into his religion, right?
So he's not a monk. He's just called
He isn't a
that.
monk. We just call him our monk.
Just because he's practically one. Okay, I get
Yeah,
it. But that's his modality of helping him stay on his path to
absolutely. Yeah,
recovery.
yeah.
Amazing.
And what it really is, like my philosophy about it is that he has a social calibration to his moral compass, right? And ultimately, when you break down what is the 12 steps, like what is that framework and structure do for you, there's certain things that it does. And when it was implemented, like when the 12-step programs were created, there was really only two other options. You could go to jail or you can go to insane asylums or you can get sober over here. And so it was massively successful. And since then, scientific advances and social awareness and social acceptance has become more prevalent, where everybody's been touched by addiction. People are really actually interested about what's going on and treating the causation of the issues instead of just the symptoms. So now everybody's like, okay, there's other answers for sure. And we can't just keep trying to push squares into a circle, into like a round hole.
Right.
And what that ultimately translates into in our culture and our philosophy of treatment is we just want you to get better, right? And if you don't fit into this mold, we can find something for you that it does. And the thing about the multiple pathways approach is that you either expose them to nothing and you do clinical work, or you give them exposure to as much as you can. And so
Options.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you can't like say, okay, if this doesn't work, then you try this, and because then what happens if that doesn't work, right? And so there's like two kinds of schools of thought in this, where they say, well, we're just not going to push anything, we're just going to do the clinical side of it, and they can figure it out there. But we're trying to set up our clients for success, just like all of us needed to be, right? And so we don't feel that we fulfill our obligation to our clients if we just don't show them anything. Um, and
You've
you'll see
kind
it.
of like got a cafeteria plan of, okay, what seems like it's going to resonate the most with you, what's going to work best with you and your life and how you live.
Yeah, and the reality is we'll never be able to expose them to every possible pathway, but we have like a pretty good medley of different pathways that are being actively explored within our clinical team already. Between our administrative team and our clinical team, we have family members um, that work programs. We have like our admissions guy, we have our executive directors, we have me, we have a bunch of people that are involved in the organization, and literally none of us are doing the exact same thing. And so that's a good base where we can be, and availability, right? And so um, within our culture, we make ourselves available to our clients. Where if you connect with somebody specifically, um, that's who you can connect with, right? Like I've been in treatment situations where it's a very awkward situation to connect with somebody who is not your counselor, like assigned, right? And then you connect with this person, but they have a different job, and there is like a barrier between you and that person where it feels very awkward to approach them. And then on the back end of that, it's like, well, if I talk to this person, is this message, like, is this conversation going to be conveyed correctly to the clinical team to really have that exchange of information so that they know where I'm at mentally if I'm not willing to be vulnerable with my counselor or my therapist, right? How are they connecting on the back end? It probably doesn't happen. It might happen. I don't know. But that's been my experience, and I've talked to a bunch of other people where it's felt the same, where the staff isn't really available to you. You go to groups, and then whoever's leading that group, you have exposure to them right then and there. But if it's somebody else's counselor, if it isn't your therapist or counselor, that stops when the group ends. And that is not how we're handling that in our culture, and then like in the office, if you want to talk to whoever, you can go talk to whoever.
So you can get their background and their story and get their assistance.
Yeah, yeah, it's the exposure to their experience, right? And then unfortunately, it's we're working with addiction, and the statistics are not on our side. Where most likely there will be like a severe return to symptoms, also known as relapse, right? Just statistically speaking, like that's very, very common. And so when that happens, we come together clinically and we say, well, who's connected with this person? And it might be my monk, right? And he'll be like, well, I have a really good connection with this person. Okay, go ahead, call, see what you can do, right? Instead, typically it's the therapist or like the programmer, somebody else is trying to connect with them, and it's like, well, that's not even the person that connected with this person. Let's send that person to try to reach them. We think that it's more effective.
Sure. I mean, if you don't trust and have a good connection with the person that is trying to help you, sometimes it's not that prescriptive. You can't always
Right.
just force a relationship with someone, but if you find something that actually does work, it seems like a natural thing to try to make that be their way, whatever relationship will help them get over their hump. I think, I mean, some of what you were saying with respect to the different modalities, I think at the end of the day what you're looking for is some way to make it easier for them to achieve their goal. And the easiest thing to date has been reaching for the drug. In my case, a lot of my clients, it is typically a drug for mental illness. Sometimes I've had a few people come to me for that also had or just had weight issues, and their drug was food.
Yeah.
So giving them the alternative, and not just the alternative, but also, why are you reaching for this? What is the thing that you're trying to solve for? What is the feeling that you're getting? And then kind of digging a little bit further from my perspective in biomentals is, why are you having that gap? What is it that you really need? Is there like a vitamin? Is there, something in the way of you getting what your body actually needs? In some cases it's, external, like with what you deal with. It's an emotional need, or it's some kind of external, coming in.
Yeah.
In my case with my patients, a lot of times what's inside that's kind of broken and needs some holes plugged so that they can get that behavioral aspect going. Eat right, exercise, they have the energy to do what they need to do, and they have the building blocks to be able to stop using what they're using. So anyway, I wanted to ask you too, what kind of, I know you said that therapy and support groups are important for addiction and treatment, but what kind of, you were talking about, Matt, the medicine assisted treatment,
Yeah.
right? And how a lot of places feel like that's not, true, steps to recovery.
Yeah.
What are you, when you have your clients come into you, what are your treatment? I guess is it group? Is it therapist? Is it a combination of those things? You said you had kind of a bunch of different options that they could use.
Yeah, so we're at the IOP level right now.
What's that for the
so
listeners that may not know?
intensive outpatient. It's so treatment works in a step down like model, where if you go to the first stop on the block typically is detox, right? And you go to detox to residential, and then there's a step down from there, and you have two options. Typically, a lot of people just go to IOP, but above that is PHP, which is partial hospitalization, where it's a much more intensive. It's 5 days a week instead of three. It's also for like 6 hours a day, 5 days a week instead of 3 hours, 3 days a week. So it's just a higher level, but there's also so so at the PHP level is where you have medication management. Right now we're implementing the systems to get that in place so that we can offer that service. But there's a doctor involved in that. So there's now a medical staff involved in your treatment plan. They they help with your treatment plan, and then they also help oversee the implementation of whatever that looks like.
Mm.
And this is where you get into MAT, right? And MAT is normally implemented at the detox level,
Mm.
and then it travels with you all the way through treatment, and then you typically stay on that maintenance drug for in a lot of cases a long time after you're done with treatment. And there's a lot of different reasons why people will stay on these drugs for a long time, or medications for a long time, specifically because these medications have been engineered for it curbs cravings, right? And then in the event that you do use opiates, it completely stops the ability to feel that drug take effect. It blocks your opiate receptors, so opiates can't attach to them, so you never feel high. And so it's a major deterrent. And then
This stuff isn't any good anymore. There's like smoking cessation
yeah,
drugs that do
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
patches and stuff. Like it doesn't give you that same.
And same thing with alcohol. There's shots now where if you drink, you get
Deathly
violently
ill,
sick,
yeah.
violently sick. And so they've developed all these medications to kind of
Halt that.
fight against the return to, from relapsing, but also the craving side of it is massive, right?
And
Um,
I know a lot of times because I'm, crunchy granola and
mhm.
Biomentals is all about doing everything drug free. I don't think that that's not, a good viable source. Like I'm constantly trying to bring home the point that I think medicine and hospitals and all those things are necessary to a point.
Yeah.
They're not the only thing. I'll give you a case in point. I had mold illness, so I was having severe respiratory, not just respiratory, neurological, and all kinds of stuff. But at one point, respiratory illness, and I needed an allergy medicine. I needed it. There wasn't a quercetin or a vitamin that was going to get into that because it was so acute.
Mhm.
But meanwhile, while I had that medication keeping me breathing, I was able to suss out, oh, hey, I have mold. Okay, so first off, cut the exposure
Yeah.
to mold, get it out, clean it up out of my system, plug in the holes of the vitamins and minerals and amino acids that it had depleted in my body and the hormones that it had shifted. And then I don't have to take them anymore
Yeah.
because everything's been re-regulated in my body back to kind of a reset.
Yeah. So this is where you and I have massive agreements on this, right? Is that um, the viability of long-term use of these medications can be detrimental to a person, right? Um, and then on
It's always a catch.
yeah, yeah. Well, so here's my issue with it, right? You see it. We saw it with methadone specifically, where people will be on methadone for 30 years, right? They get on it. Um, it's chemically a much different structure than Suboxone, so a lot of people are still using on methadone. But they will get on methadone and stay on methadone from the time they get sober till the day that they die. Suboxone, the medical industry saw that that was happening over here, and then they've really tried to stop that from being the case. But it's not always the case that they use it short term to accomplish a goal. Um, the way that we see it is that this is not a long term option, right? And this is where really showing people why good diet and exercise is super important, because you can balance yourself out with these medications, and then if you do it correctly, like with our philosophy correctly, you get off the medication, and now you've had lifestyle changes that will help you sustain your recovery. And unfortunately, we are addicts, right? A lot of the everybody that gets on these medications are addicts. There's no other reason for it. Um, they actually started treating pain management with these drugs too, because they are much less harmful than opiates. But so other than like pain management people, it was developed and implemented for addiction, right? And so, but the reality is it's extremely formative, habit forming, you can still have massive withdrawal symptoms from it. The withdrawals are much more severe and longer lasting than just opiates. And like my story is that I got on a massive dose almost immediately. I went to detox and then went to treatment. And when I got to, I left detox with like an 8 milligram of Suboxone a day prescription. I got to treatment and I got it upped all the way to 24 milligrams a day.
Wow.
So they
Wow.
tripled it basically within a couple days of me getting there. And then I can't actually tell you the philosophy behind that, but my assumption is we're here for residential. They don't want to deal with sick people. It's disruptive to the entire
It's
program.
medicating them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
You're less trouble to deal with when you're
yeah, yeah. Well,
oh,
opiate withdrawals is not a joke, right? Like, there's a
no,
reason
no.
why people that's their uh, opiate addicts. Their real number one fear is withdrawal, and so that's why you see just the cycle that opiates put you into. It's super destructive, and there's no part of you that isn't thinking fixated or obsessed with using, and it's really because of the fear of the withdrawal.
Sure.
But so I get on this massive dose. I'm there for 3 weeks. I'm then released from their care with a prescription for 90 of these strips a month, 98 milligram strips a month, right? That's
And you're back down to 8.
and well, I leave, and I at that point in my life I was so ready to just stop, to stop having a chemical hook, to stop being dependent on medications or drugs. um, this isn't this isn't the normal thing though, right? Like, most people want that crutch. It's a very comforting thing. And then you talk to doctors about this and they're like, yeah, once you get them to a low enough dose, a lot of them are using it not for what it's traditionally prescribed for. A lot of them are using it for mood stabilization. Um, and so the my philosophy though is you get them off it as fast as possible, right? You get them to where they have lifestyle changes, they understand what's going on in their body, they now see the importance of a good nutrition, and massively the importance of exercise. And that's really what has changed my entire trajectory of recovery, right? Meeting Taylor, working with Taylor, and the conversations that we have around this, and watching his story and then applying a lot of those principles to my story. And like my wife says all the time, like, if you don't work out, like, when I don't work out for one day, she starts asking me, hey, what's
Are
going
you all
on?
right
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Yeah.
She'll be
Well,
like, dude, you're not gonna
and
work out today.
talk to me about how you mentioned Taylor,
Mm-hmm.
and this is Taylor
Cavanaugh.
Cavanaugh.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how you came upon finding him and what it was that drew you to work with him, and kind of what was all that? How did that
So
go
I was
down?
struggling in recovery, is what it ultimately was. I was going through, um, I was running into massive friction points in my personal life. So I had gotten clean in 2020, the end of 2020, December 28th of 2020 is when I got arrested. So I got clean, and I was clean for years, and I relapsed. And I relapsed historically, my shortest relapse. But I relapsed, and this was after I had returned to my family, which I hadn't talked to for 10 plus years. And so I start hitting massive friction points. And I'm looking for direction, right? And the reality is, I was going to meetings, I was going to 12-step meetings, and I was doing everything that I was told I need to do to stay sober, right? I was going to 3 or 4 meetings a day, every day, and I was just miserable. And then I stumbled across Taylor, and it was just like I was on YouTube and I heard a part of a story. So it might have been a short. I can't remember exactly how this happened. It might have been a short that pointed me towards a long form podcast. Um, but in that podcast, he tells a story with addiction and suicidal ideation and just all this. Just I identified with maybe not the same struggles, but just the friction points that he was running into and how he handled them. And then at the end of the podcast, there was like for like 2 seconds. And I've watched a bunch of his other podcasts since. He really doesn't do this where he plugs himself and says like, go to my website or whatever. He doesn't really do that. It just ends. And I don't know. I read, so there's this, he plugged his website. I got onto his website and there's like an option to message him, and he messaged me back in like an hour, right? And we got on a phone call, we started talking, and I was already working out a little bit, really just for my sanity, and I was also massively out of shape. I was just really unhappy with my body and my health, and then I was spiraling. In this is all in recovery, right? And this is all doing the things that I had a sponsor. I was working steps. I was going to meetings. I was going to
You were
multiple
doing the
meetings a day.
things and
Yeah.
nothing.
And then I met Taylor, and it completely changed my trajectory of my recovery. And it changed my mindset, it changed my attitude, it changed my outlook. And he never told me not to go to meetings, right? And I go to, at the time I was going to see a therapist twice a week. And so all this in conjunction, I meet Taylor, everything changed, and my therapist kind of walked me through what was going, because it's really hard for self to critique self, especially when you're
I'm doing fine.
yeah, especially when you're naturally like predisposed to
Not cool.
delusion, and I am naturally delusional. So just through, I don't know, whatever got me there, like I am very easy to lie to myself, right? And that's dangerous, right? When you're in those situations, lies look like truth sometimes. And and so anyway, Taylor really pulled me out of a hole that I was in, and really pointed me on this direction of um, like, who am I and what am I, right? And we've had just massive conversations just about directionally, what does this look like? And it was about the same time that I started interacting with Taylor that I was like, you know what, I need to do something. I need to have, these are all conversations that we had, right? He was like, well, what is your purpose, like, what are you doing? And up to that point, the I can tell you all this, like the reason why I relapsed was this or whatever. The reality is I relapsed, and I started questioning a lot of things that was going on in my life. And it really kind of solidified, I had always had this vision of, I'm going to open these sober living homes one day, and he really helped me get on that path. And then one thing kind of led to another, and now I've opened a treatment center. And but yeah, Taylor's whole philosophy around recovery and being a man, right? Because we're men, so we speak to that experience. Um, but just being a well-rounded man and being able to provide in a very healthy way, and really taking responsibility for the things that I have messed up, and then moving forward, not dwelling on those things.
I think it goes back to that debt
And then yeah,
that you were talking about.
this is where my whole philosophy about the debt of recovery, I developed that whole idea. And then also, I firmly believe that it's nearly impossible to move forward when you're constantly looking backwards. And these are
Yeah,
the
you don't drive that way.
right.
Just every now and then.
Right.
Check it.
And so these are the structures that I started. I started to be dissatisfied with what traditional recovery looks like. I tried to fit myself into that mold for so long, and I was like, this doesn't work for me. This just really doesn't work for me. And so that is where this whole multiple pathways approach really came into the forefront of how are we going to do this. But my recovery, I'm sure that there's people that subscribe to a traditional recovery path that would say that I am not in recovery, even though I don't use, or I don't, I've never drank, but I don't use, I've been clean for over a year and a half. And, but they would say, well, he's not in recovery. He's not going to meetings. He's not working steps. He doesn't have a sponsor. Like all these things. It's like, okay.
Right, because they have this prescriptive mindset that this is the only way.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also true. It's interesting you were talking about like how you and Taylor, you sound like you're kind of on the same frequency, similar personalities. When I was getting certified for functional medicine, one of the things that we did was look at a book called The Four Tendencies. It's by Gretchen Rubin. And it's just kind of broke us, people and their personalities down into four different typical types. And this was something we went over just to kind of help us when we're working with clients. How do we reach them and pay them in their own currency? And how do we get them to buy into what they need to do? And how do we get them to get to that point, to get that to that goal in their own way? What's going to motivate them? And it was funny because there are four different types. It's the obliger, will do things because they're supposed to, whether they want to or not. If it's something that you're supposed to do, like the prescription, that's what they're going to do. And those kind of that prescriptive mindset, those are probably those people. And that works for them. And that's great if it works for you. There's some people like the questioners where they'll do it if it makes sense to them.
Yeah.
There's some people upholders. They're the ones that they're pretty self-driven. Like they don't need like somebody like an obliger needs an accountability buddy. But an upholder may not need it. They'll be self-driven because they know it's what they're supposed to do. They want to do the thing that they are supposed to do. An obliger, if they don't have an accountability buddy, well, I'm not hurting anybody else, so I might not do it today. And then there's the rebel. And the rebel, guess what type I am? The rebel is not going to do a damn thing unless they love it. If they love it, they'll do it. Me, I hate cleaning. I hate it with a passion. I don't want to do it, but I love having a beautiful house.
Okay.
I love being in beautiful surroundings. That's the only way that I ever clean a damn thing. Because otherwise, because I have to, because it's better for your health. None of these external things, even though I know it makes sense, I'm not going to do it.
Of course.
Because I don't love it. So it was interesting to see those different ways, and they're really like I would do horribly in a situation where it was prescriptive, like you're saying, like a 12-step, just because they're trying to make me do it. Like and it's not something I love. If I loved it, that'd be a different thing. But it just kind of pounded down into our minds that just everybody is motivated differently.
Yeah.
And you can get them to do things if you find that sweet spot for them. And I like that you're approaching it that way, and that you're the ultimate goal for you and for me is for them to not need us anymore.
Yeah.
Even with my clients, yes, we put them on supplements. Yes, we do all these, maybe herbs, maybe other things. But at the end of the day, it's this tightrope walk where we're making adjustments to all those things to lessen and lessen them until they're tapered down to, at the end of their road, maybe a multivitamin, just because food doesn't have the content that it should, the nutritional content that it should, and we don't eat the way we should typically. Maybe an omega-3, maybe a probiotic, because those typically we would eat, and we just don't typically have access to that all the time. But that's where we want to go, is where they've got the independence is there, and they're on their merry way, I think. So however they need to get there, even if it's just baby steps, that's, what's important is that they get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, in the treatment industry, and I'm sure you've ran into this or I've experienced similarities. I hope not, but we're dealing with life and death, right? And ultimately the end result is if we fail them, they're already set up for failure, right? The statistics are 100% against them.
And the system is. Everybody's wagging their finger at them.
And that's another good point is, they are inheriting guilt and shame externally. A lot of it is unfortunately from their family who are trying to protect themselves emotionally. It's a mess. It's a mess. And if we fail them, there's a high likelihood, especially with the introduction to fentanyl into the drug supply, there's a high likelihood that they are exposing themselves to situations where they could pass away, right?
Or harm others. I mean, there is that reality.
Well, I mean, the nature of that beast is, you're never doing good for anybody else
Not
when you're
yourself.
actively addiction.
Yeah.
you know, typically the only people that you're interacting with are people that benefit you in some way or another. And if it benefits you, it's normally not a benefit to them.
Mhm.
It's just the whole nature of the interactions of the relationships that you develop in addiction. It's tragic, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then you will have those like statistical anomalies where you'll have a relationship that foundationally is not transactional in addiction, but it's rare, right? And like my wife and I met each other in addiction, and we're about to have our second daughter, right?
Congratulations.
Thank you. So things do change, right? And then there is that off chance that you'll meet somebody where it isn't necessarily destructive by nature, the relationship, but it just that is the exception to the rule. And so the reality is that we are dealing with life and death situations, and if we do fail these people in servicing exactly what they're coming for, which is ultimately at the IOP level, right? It's intensive outpatient. They're here for information. Ultimately, if they've already experienced the higher levels of care, they've already been stabilized. They've kind of been diagnosed. They've started addressing certain traumas, maybe, and now they are living back in the world. They're struggling to find jobs or struggle to get back to their job, struggling to get back with their family, really addressing the issues that were created in their addiction. And they're coming to us to help process, implement things that they have learned, and gather as much information as they can. Um, and it amazes me out that, like, there is a high percentage of places that I feel don't meet that baseline obligation of exchanging information at the level that they should. And one of the things that I think sets us apart, not like uniquely, but from maybe like the main group, is that um, clinical integrity is one of our like utmost important pieces of our culture. Is that we'll never be clinically lazy to our, we'll always be responsible to our clients, right?
How
So
do you mean clinically lazy? Like,
yeah,
sounds like a good term to coin.
yeah. So
I've heard medical gaslighting, and that's a good term
I've
too.
experienced this, and so I built this company out from my experience, right, from the client's point of view.
Same here.
I did a 3 year residential program. I did like a 9 month residential, a 7 month residential, and then a bunch of outpatient. So I've experienced. Also, I did like a Synanon based program. I don't know if you
What's
look
that?
back. So Synanon was the first therapeutic community. It was established kind of on the same principles as AA, but it's just a totally different beast. There's actually a really good documentary out. It's called The Synanon Fix. Like really gives you a good idea about what it's like. I don't want to ruin that because it's really good. Everybody should watch it.
Spoiler alert.
Super interesting. But yeah, I've been to Synanon based programs. I've been to faith based programs. I've been to like evidence based programs. I've experienced the spectrum of treatment. And one thing that I've always noticed is that there is a huge difference between it. I don't know if this is like a normalized term or not, but there is a difference between clinically lazy treatment centers and clinically, they're like they have integrity with their clinical, however they implement their clinical department, right? And what that simply means is this: we are, whether I'm paying you or insurance is paying you, there's a job that's expected, right? And when we are, as clients, running groups, or when we are, as clients, um, experiencing things in treatment that we could have gotten anywhere else,
Mm.
I think it's clinically lazy. And so, if that time is assigned to, let's say, relapse prevention, and they come in and say, well, you guys are going to run this group, we're here for a specific reason, right? We're here because you guys are the experts. Why are we running groups?
Right.
So, and that is a very that is a widely practiced thing. Like basically every treatment center that I've been to has done that. And I don't know. I mean, I've asked this question many, many times, like, why is this a thing? Now that I'm on this side of it, and I've always gotten the same responses. That's not supposed to happen.
Really?
Yeah. So it's just a matter of like
Somehow
keeping.
they found a way to cut corners on their.
I mean, it's an integrity issue. It's everybody is assigned groups that they are supposed to oversee. If a clinician doesn't want to do it or whatever, like nobody's paying attention, right? So they could just say, hey, they could show up for the first whenever the group's supposed to start and say, you guys are going to run a 12-step meeting or you guys are going to read the big book or whatever it is, right? If that worked, then none of us would need treatment. We could all just go to meetings.
Right.
Like, and so it's just a level of integrity in your culture that says we will not do that to you.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're seeing in the medical system in general. I mean, I don't know if you are, but I talk to a lot of people. They're like, I just go to the doctor and they don't even, they're there 15 minutes. They don't even listen to what I have to say. And I walk out with a prescription of some kind. I don't even know what exactly this is supposed to do for me.
Yeah. So it is a lot better in the treatment industry because a large percentage of people that are manning these stations are recovering addicts. And so we have that call to serve. It's part of that that debt of recovery that I've developed, right? And
I
so
don't want anybody else to suffer the way I
we
suffer.
all feel
Yeah.
that pull.
Yeah. I
But
have that too. I mean, that's kind of the thing I love about what I do and why
yeah,
I opened Biomentals was I don't want anybody to go through what I did for 12
absolutely.
years.
Absolutely.
I,
And I think it's avoidable on some level. But like for me, raised in a like a traditionally really good home, right? Like when you like mark off the boxes of like what does a decent home look like, all those boxes are checked, right? Um, a lot of the decisions that I made were exactly that. It was decision. I know the consequences of the decision, and I'm still gonna make it because this is what I want to do. And you can tell me every reason in the book why not to do it. I'm still gonna do it.
I sound like a rebel.
Yeah. I also there is a component of there was so I was sexually abused as a kid.
Oh, that will do it too.
And so there was that, and I was also very dishonest about it. I didn't tell my parents about it until maybe a year and a half ago. Less than
wow.
that. Less than that.
Yeah, I was too, but nobody ever talked about it until my sister was molested also. And when she
Okay.
died, we finally had discussions about it. And I was like, I had been telling y'all, and nobody listened.
Kind of a similar situation where the perpetrator had victimized multiple members of my family, and this kind of all came to a head, and my family kind of confronted me like, "Hey, is this what happened to you?" And I was just like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And I'm the oldest grandchild. I think my grandparents have 28 grandkids. So I'm the oldest grandchild. I was the trial run, right? And nobody knew what they were doing. They were essentially all kids too. Like by the time my parents were my age, they had 8 or 9 kids. And you know, I think my dad was 19 when I was born. So they were kids too. They didn't know what was going on. But they still did the best they could do. The reality is it didn't matter what anybody did. I was going to do what I was going to do. And ultimately, in hindsight, I realized that that was part of my journey. That was like,
Your coping mechanism was.
yeah, it was. With hindsight, I can honestly say that like I had to do this. I had to make these decisions. I had to do the things that I did to get me to where I'm at today. In order for me to fulfill, I think what I was called to do, I had to make those mistakes. And so it ultimately like up front it looks like, oh, this guy's a rebel, he was just gonna do whatever he wanted to do.
But there's always a reason.
Yeah, but on the back end it really like has become more obvious to me and a lot of other people that I talk to about this, that I was gonna do it anyway. And it's because of where I'm at today that I was gonna do it. There's only one way for us to accept somebody's word as an expert, and they have to be an expert, right?
Yeah, you're definitely, you've been through the fire, you
Yeah.
know, and been to the mountain, you know where to go,
Yeah.
where not to go, all that.
And so I can look somebody in the eye and say, listen, like, you can't see what's around the corner, but I've been there multiple times and I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you exactly what's going to happen.
Right.
Right. And even if they continue down that path, maybe they hit that first corner and they can remember, like, oh, I was told about
Mm-hmm.
this, right?
Oh yeah, that thing you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And if he was right about this, maybe he's right about the
The
next
other
thing or the
thing.
next thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that I'm like the savior of addiction, like addicts or whatever. I'm trying to move the needle a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to help as much as I can. And my whole philosophy behind that is I have this calling. I don't know what your spiritual beliefs are or whatever. Mine are not traditional in any way. And I couldn't put a box around it and say, oh, this is what I believe in. But I do believe that I have a creator that knows who I am and specifically created me to do something very specific. And one of the ways that I know that is I'm 5'5". And if he would have made me 6 feet tall, it would have been a major problem because of my personality. So I know that he knows me, and I am supposed to help somebody out there. I don't know who it is. I don't know what I'm going to interact with this person. I don't know what it's going to look like. I'll never know, right? And so I feel like if I don't help every person that I can, I will miss
That one
that
person.
opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's why I do what I do.
I think I have a more selfish bent, and maybe this is that rebel part that I need to love it. I started doing this um, partially to continue helping my son
Hmm.
because I wanted to continue learning more and helping him more and doing as much as I could to give him everything I could give him to make his life a success,
Hmm.
as much as possible. And I also, I can't shut up. Once I found something, I can't let people just think like even if it bothers them,
Yeah.
if you have a spinach in your tooth, I'm going to tell you you have a spinach in your tooth.
Okay.
If you hate me afterwards, I am sorry, but
Yeah.
that's
Not
what I
your
would,
problem.
that's what I would want done for me.
For
And,
sure.
and that's part of it too, is that I need to, I wish I had been given this information before.
Hmm.
And I love to find and show. If I find something amazing that could help someone, I want to show it
Hmm.
to them. So that's a little unselfish, but
No, I
my
mean,
ulterior motive is
yeah.
still there too.
I mean, it sounds logical, right? And if it is self-serving, it's also beneficial to a lot of other people.
That's what I'm hoping for is a win-win.
I want to go back to address something really quick. Um, we were talking about it earlier, and I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Um, the majority of people that like man these stations are in they're in recovery too, and so they have this massive pull to help people. The problem is when the business side gets in the way of the clinical side, and when that starts happening, people start making calls from a money perspective, and they stop serving who their clients are. And this is massive conversations that we have in my organization all the time. Is that if we ever get to that point, we are then failing what we started this for. Um, and I think everybody starts, you know, in this industry, they start these organizations with the same altruistic ideals in place that they want to help people. It's when it's profits over people is a massive problem in every industry, right? Any service based industry, and we talked about this yesterday. And my monk told us, he was like, "Look, I feel the exact same way about the like Italian restaurants, right? You'll watch a good Italian restaurant. They have their yeah,
As soon as they start trying to make some money. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They'll have their cousins and their uncles come from Italy, and they've got this great menu, and they really like pushing something to their customers that they enjoy. And then somebody in the background starts going, "Hey, we need to cut costs right here. We need to start doing this. We need to start," and then there's tension, and it creates chaos. And then you start to. He said you could see it in the Yelp reviews. He's like, I see it all the time where people go, 5 years ago, this place was amazing. I don't know what happened,
Mhm.
right? And that's the same thing that happens in this industry is that people will develop this really, really good reputation. They'll start seeing a lot of success. There's a lot of potential for massive success in this industry. And from what I've been told, is just that they lose sight of their original vision. And a lot of times what actually happens is they change captains,
Yeah,
right? And then
it's management change.
starts
Yeah,
going in a different direction,
yeah.
which is unfortunate because there has been dynasties and just powerhouses have been created in this industry, and they'll either sell or they'll do something to make some money, and maybe it exchanges hands. They lose sight of what they were doing, and so up front we are developing a culture now so that we can perpetuate that down the line, and it people will
Because
just
there
come
are
into it.
businesses that do continue that level of
Absolutely.
quality. So it's
Absolutely.
not something that you can't do. I think that we were talking about the religious aspect. I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's not a very popular thing to
I was raised
be.
Mormon.
Where I had a feeling there was something there you were talking about before. And I wasn't raised that way. I was raised in, a hedonistic environment on one side, my father's side, and then my mother was just like Babylon. Anything goes. Give whatever religion you got, give it to me. But for me, that idea that my main goal is serving God, and in so doing, He kind of makes me serve everybody else. And still serve myself, but there's only so much I need, right? And the goal isn't making money, and the goal isn't, I mean, I'd love to go global just because I think what I'm doing and what I know could help all over the world.
Do you know who Dr. Zuby is?
No.
That's a crazy story. Sorry to cut you off.
No, not at all. I was just, my point in saying all that was that, for me, there's a certain level of enough is enough. You get past a certain amount of money and you're not going to be any happier.
Yeah, there's very little difference in lifestyle between somebody who makes $20 million and $1 billion.
Right.
And yeah, we are, trust me, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. There are people that we are modeling ourselves off of as far as the way that they handle not just success, but continuing to forever serve, right? And to do their job well. I think if you do your job well, especially in the recovery industry, there's dividends in all kinds of things, right?
I agree.
Everybody gets to eat, but spiritually, it's very fulfilling to help people not have to suffer in the ways that you did. And there's also a level of, like, for me, there is a level of calling, right? There's like a component of calling, but there's this, I feel this pull every day where it's like, if I am not trying to figure out how to help that person that is in that exact same gutter that I was in, then there is no point for me being sober. Right. And
what was all this for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, it's like, if you're not going to personally and spiritually and physically develop every day after you get sober, and this is the debt of recovery, if you're not trying to balance that scale every day, and as men, I kind of came up with this part as part of my philosophy, and that me and Taylor talk about this all the time too, but as men, we have four parts of us, right? This is the mental, the spiritual, the physical, and emotional. And if you are not balanced, if one is like off, it has gravity, right? It has weight, and it will pull you into it. And then the second that starts happening, it starts chain reactions in your spiritual life, your relationships, everything, right? If you like that's why my wife will tell me, if you're not going to the gym today, what's going on? Because if I don't go to the gym, that could have a chain reaction somewhere else, right? And that's kind of extreme, right? But it's the reality of it is like
you're out of alignment with
you're out of balance, right? And then
and you're gonna get off your path if you don't continue.
And she's seen it too. When I was unstable and I met Taylor, I stopped working out. And I just started to spiral because I had nothing grounding me. It was just a very tumultuous time in my life anyway, because of the consequences of my decisions. And I'm still paying for them today, right? I have some things going on in the background that are extremely painful that I'm trying to deal with. But I mean, it just it is what it is. I have to deal with the consequences of my decisions, and this is in recovery, right? And these are the kinds of conversations that I think that people would benefit from, right? Is that like, hey, in recovery, things still do suck sometimes. Instead of trying to paint this broad brush of if you get clean, your life gets better,
Right.
period.
Right.
Yes, on the back end, that's very true. But maybe up front, it's not,
Mm.
right? Maybe up front, it's more painful.
Mm.
Maybe up front, it's even less stable, right? Because in my addiction, I found a level of not just consistency, but like solitude and peace in the drugs that I had never found in people.
Mm.
I had found the consistency was the core part of it, but I had found a way to cope with whatever else was going on, and it brought me a level of peace that I had never experienced in my life until I reached that level. And now I've reached that in recovery, that I'm at peace with things, but it doesn't mean that like it's just peaceful. It means that I've come to peace with a lot of things that I have to deal with,
Mm.
right? And I think that people paint recovery in almost in a deceptive light, and then people experience it and they go, if this is recovery, I don't want any part of it, right? And that's where we're trying to make a difference. Is like, look, if we're just honest with these people
Mm.
and prepare them for what's actually going to happen, they might have a better reaction. Because specifically speaking to the people that have had negative experience in traditional pathways of recovery, they're already they already have a bad taste in their mouth about what this is going to mean and what it actually looks like.
Mhm.
And so I think the prescription of uh, to solve that is just honesty,
Mm.
right? Like, and the thing about it is, I could be wrong monolithically. This probably won't work for everybody, but it's going to work for some people, right? And we'll never tell anybody like, hey, you're on the wrong pathway,
Mm.
right? Unless they tell us this isn't working for me, we're never going to tell them, hey, that's you don't know what you're talking about,
Mm.
right? We think that every client is an expert in their own life experience, and a lot of them can really tell us what they need if we listen to them instead of trying to paint with broad brushes.
I have the opposite approach. Like, no, if you would just do all the things I'm telling you to do.
You have you're talking from a chemical
Then,
point of view though,
yeah.
right? And you
Well,
might actually be right monolithically.
it could be because most people's, but I'm also, when I give, like I notice with my clients, when I give them their um, to-dos, their to-do list, it often involves labs. It often involves, for first it's labs typically, and I've also listened to their stories, so I know which labs I'm trying to
Mhm.
find out more about what's going on in their body. So once I lay out, okay, these are the things that we need to do to help you get, across that tightrope walk, and we're going to make adjustments like you were saying. I mean, it's a daily thing, right? You need to move every day, you need to eat every day, you need to have water every day. There's no vacation. You're never going to sit back and not do anything. You have to just kind of continue moving forward, or else you go backwards. Just in life, like you can't just loaf.
Yeah.
There's no, that's not good for you.
Yeah, the laws of perpetual motion.
Right, exactly. So with a lot of my clients, it's a matter of like, they'll do one test and they'll get a little better, and now I'm feeling better. Yeah, but we could get you all the way over here instead of, just this little bit,
Mhm.
if you did all the rest of this stuff too.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to say I'm right. I mean, I'm very much about respecting the person and what they're able to handle, and certainly not all at once. I have a good friend of mine who's also a client, and he's like, you just want me to do all this at once. I'm like, I never said I needed you to do all this at once.
Right.
These are just all the things you need to do to be able to get to that point.
Yeah.
That tightrope walk is not going to be a big jump. It's going to be a little by little kind of move that, balancing stick, make adjustments here, make adjustments there, but all the while you're trying to move forward to get to that end.
Yeah. And see, there are things that we will prescribe monolithically. Everybody should work out. right?
Yeah.
Everybody should,
You
so
have a
whatever that
body. You
means.
have to, yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you're in a wheelchair and
Mhm.
only can move your tongue, like work that tongue.
Everybody should understand what they're putting into their body, right? And I'm not some guru about this. I don't eat clean, right? But but I have had periods where I've been very strict on certain diets, and I can see what happens when I follow these prescriptions, and it's like, oh man, if I wasn't such a food addict, I could really feel much better on a daily basis if I just did this, because I've done it for, I was on a carnivore diet for like a year and a half, and the changes in my body and the changes in my sleep and the changes like that I experienced, I was like, I thought I would never stop doing that, and then uh, I relapsed. Ultimately, is what
That's a
happens.
tough diet to do. But what I found too is like with Jordan Peterson, we were talking
Yeah.
about that before the show the
Hmm.
other day. They found that the reason their carnivore diet was working was that they had mold
Hmm.
issues. So
Yeah.
that's kind of also what we're looking for. And I know, a lot of people when they think about something like nutrition and working out. I mean, my thought when someone says work out is, but I talk to the rebel in me. What do you love? You can move your body in ways you love.
Yeah.
That's all you really need
Oh,
to
that's right. You
do.
dance, right?
I dance.
Yeah.
I'll roller skate. I'll swim. I'll play soccer. I'll do a lot of things that I love. But I really hate the gym, except for the punching bag. I love the big bag at the gym, and I'll box that thing all day. So there's certain things that, and I won't tell you why I love that,
I can
but
imagine. You know what? I hate the gym too. I really hate going to the gym.
but you
So,
love what it does after. Is
well,
the
I built a home gym that, I
has what you
mean,
want.
it's overkill for what it is, for sure. But I spend hours out there every day. I mean, every day I'm out there every day. And I realized really quick, I just don't like going to the gym.
Mhm.
I really like working out though. So,
That's perfect.
yeah. So I was like, well, how can I do this? I got to do it at home.
Right.
Right. So I brought the gym home.
And I think that's what we're looking for, both of us and for our clients
Mhm.
is what will it take to get you there?
Yeah.
This is the goal. How do we get you to implement what works for you
Mhm.
in a way that will get you to do this on a regular basis so that you can get to this goal and stay there? It's a lifestyle change,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Um, and my whole lens that I look through, especially when it comes to recovery, but I mean just life in general now, is really from a harm reduction point of view, right? And implementing a harm reduction plan for clients and really getting down to, look, it's impossible to eat an elephant in one sitting, right? So how do you do it? You do it one bite at a time, and
The most delicious part of it.
yeah, we could start there first, right? But what does this look like for you then, right? If you don't want to go to 12 steps, or you don't want to work out, or you don't want to do this, what do you want to do, right? If you want to paint, if you want to, whatever it is, right? Um, and all of that in conjunction with therapy, with CBT, with DBT, with going to groups, with processing, with having a support system that's been not only been there and done that, but also like really wants the best for you and understands where you're at personally, right? Having that open communication and being able to level with somebody and say, I don't want to do anything today. I'm miserable, right? That is fine. That is fine to say.
No, get in
But
there.
let's not stay there,
Yeah.
right? Let's not stay there. Let's really, and the thing is, like, for a lot of hopeless, like, when you're in rock bottom, first of all, everybody's rock bottom is different, right? And you might think you're at rock bottom, but my addiction has thrown a jackhammer at me enough times and told me to dig that I know you can always go lower, right? You can always make it worse.
Right. Didn't think
Um,
I'd do that ever, but
yeah, you can trust me. You can always make it worse, and so it's a really bad place to be, but it's an amazing foundation to build on. Right? It's very sturdy. Ultimately, a lot of people find a lot of strength in their experience. Right? And so, what it's perspective changes, it's paradigm shifts, it's really understanding that like maybe you didn't like it while it was happening, but it was for a greater cause, right? And starting to like implement things that like I was raised in an extremely religious situation, and then I was like militantly anti-religion for a long time, and I spoke the language really well, and so in my addiction I would I would gaslight people who would claim to be religious, and I would explain to them why they were dumb for saying that they were, just based on the answers that they gave me. And it was like, first of all, it's not right, but it made me feel better about what I was doing for whatever reasons, that delusion, right? But I learned really quickly that experience can be weaponized or it can be used as a tool. And you can build a house with a hammer, or you can
Smash
hurt somebody
something
with it,
in,
right?
yeah.
Um, Getting people to use their experience as a tool instead of a weapon. Really starting to understand what the cause of these symptoms are, and then addressing the cause, and then it systematically just works this way. When you overcome something, it becomes a strength, and then allowing them to use that strength to benefit other people. And so a large thing, I am part of a organization that certifies sober coaches and recovery coaches, and it's a CPFS certification. So there's a family component. It's a certified peer and family specialist, and you don't need any education for it, right? You're a peer that helps other peers. And so there's a huge component of our business that's going to be like implementing that on the back end, where um, if you want to help other people, we can help you get on the right path to help other people. And that's what I really think about this whole debt of recovery thing is. It's like, for me, it would have been completely pointless to get sober and then not do anything. It would have almost been more logical to just stay in my addiction if I wasn't going to do anything. But when you get sober and you enter recovery, you, just by nature of entering recovery, owe a massive debt, but it is proportionate to the bad that you've done too. So everybody's balance looks different.
Sure.
I have,
When you're forgiven much, you
right. I
feel
have a
like giving
massive
back much.
deficit.
Yeah.
So I'm working. Another belief that we have that we're really that I have that I'm really trying to like plant seeds of is that we're coming from the so the majority of the world is in the solution, and they're trying to avoid the problem, especially when it comes to drugs and alcohol, right? I'm coming from the problem and going towards the solution. So my perspective is very different than a lot of other people's. When you really look at like the how many people are actually addicts and how many in the world, how many people are addicts and how many people aren't, it's a very unique experience to come out of addiction and have success in it, right? And there's some insane, I mean, just really heartbreaking statistics out there about how many people actually get clean and how many people don't. And the one that I read that I really like to quote is that it's 1 out of 10 people will stay clean for 1 year. And of that 10%, 1 out of 10 will stay clean for 10 years, but they have to go to treatment 7 times. So the number statistic, like what that actually translates to, is less than 0.1%, right?
Because by the time they reach number 3, I'm sure it seems out of
Yeah,
reach
it's
to keep
astronomical,
going.
right? And so these are statistical anomalies for people to come out of addiction, stay clean for 10 years, or be successful, right? And so the statistics are already against everybody. And then the nature of the beast is, it's so insane to like have that monkey on your back, like so to speak, right?
And there's always something new to confront too in life. Kind of, I can only, with what I do and what I've gone through, relate it to, one of the places I lived in that was causing me environmental illness was overrun with pesticides. They double pesticided my apartment. So I got poison.
Yeah.
So I had to get cleaned up from the poison. Next place I moved to, mold infestation. I got poison from that, had to clean up from it, move. Recently, my neighbor was smoking. The smoke from her apartment was getting into mine. I had to move because I was getting sick, gained weight, all this stuff. And so there's constantly going to be something that you're facing
Yeah.
that's going to cause you to have to possibly relapse or possibly, want to reach for something to medicate. And, in my world, that's literal because I was reaching for pain medicine, I was reaching
Yeah.
for allergy medicine. But in your world, that's reaching for the next hit
Yeah.
possible. And what is it that you can do to get out of whatever it is that's causing the problem, whether it's external, emotional, or whether it's something like my neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and kind of to like use what you're saying, right? We can change what you reach for, right? But if we can stop you from having to reach, that's the goal, right? And
And identify it. Like, what
in
is it
order to
that's
stop you from having to reach, we have to identify, we have to address the causation, right? We can't just address the symptoms anymore. I think historically, people have addressed the symptoms um, really well, right? They've been able to stop the person from drinking. They've been able to stop the person from using, and then they get them on this path where they don't reach anymore. But then they are. I mean, I've seen it so many times where there's like that old guy in the back of the room that is just absolutely miserable, right? And that's not what I
in the
want.
AA meeting?
Yeah, wherever, right? And um, at that point, I'm like, what? I would much rather have just continued to do what I was doing than to be sober and miserable. And so I work daily on not being that person,
Yeah.
right? And it does look different. I mean, it really does. And I think a lot of people, even watching this, they might like really thumb their nose at me and say like, I don't know what I'm talking about, and I might not. I might not know what's best for you, but I know what's best for me, and I can see what's going on, right? Have you ever seen the statistics on people that are relapsing the day they get out of treatment? It's staggering. And then there's a huge percentage of people that the day they get out of treatment, if they're relapsing the first hour they get out. And so that tells me one thing for sure is that treatment didn't work for that person.
Over 100,000 people died in 2023 from a drug overdose just in the US.
Yeah, that was in 2021, right?
2023.
Okay, 2024, it's the leading cause of death for people under 40. If it is life or death, what we're really talking about is spiritual issues, right? Because when it comes down to it, like we're here for like such a small amount of time, and for me, it wasn't until very recently that I started to realize that there was something else going on, and really what it is with hindsight on my life, I cannot deny that there was something guiding me and protecting me through all of the crazy stuff that I was doing. I mean, I can't even describe to you how, for lack of a better term, lucky I am to be sitting here today. Um, I should be in prison for the rest of my life, probably multiple times over, for stuff that I didn't get caught, and then for the things that I have gotten caught for. So, and then if it wasn't for that, like I should probably be dead. Like legitimately should probably be dead. And I know many people who are doing life sentences and who are dead, right? And so when I look back on that, I'm like, why me? Like, what was it? You get sober, you start to question things like
Yeah.
your existence. Like, why am I doing this? Like, what am I doing here? Why am I? And my best friend passed away 2 years ago from a drug overdose.
I'm so sorry.
I am too. It was, and see, it's like poor decision making, right? And he was sober for years and found justified a good reason to use. He did it, and I mean, probably within a week of relapsing, he was passed away. And so things like this happen, and I start questioning things, right? And I start looking at things from like a practical point of view, and I'm like, why why him and not me? You know, there's all kinds of things that go on. Anyway, it's a hindsight, right? And it's like there are situations that I've gone through where it's like that couldn't have just been luck, right? That couldn't have just been
You
me.
start looking around.
Yeah, like that couldn't have just been me in and of myself, like getting myself through that. I mean, it's really crazy. And so, like, you pull back from that, and it's like, okay, you know, for me at least, what it looks like is that I have something that I'm supposed to do. I'm pretty sure I'm on the right path because everything has just fallen into place from the team that I got to like, this was an idea a year ago. Now we're open, we have clients, we're treating people. I have an amazing team. My support system is like more than I could have ever dreamed of, having in a support system, right? Traditionally, what I thought that was supposed to look like was like, oh, I have this sponsor that's brought like people through the work before, and you know, and like the person that I look to as a sponsor is the only Navy SEAL in the history of the world that joined the French Foreign Legion after he got out and has this amazing redemption story and a recovery story, and like now he's got a baby girl and he's married and happy, and he's on the other side of all of that now helping other people, and I am one of the lucky people that get to work with him, right? um, and so there's all these like contributing factors in my head where it's like this is obviously um, and this goes back to that debt of recovery, right? There's things like that where it tips the scale back a little bit. It's like, well, now I owe even more because now I have this other thing that I have to balance, you know. And so it's this never ending battle really for me to balance the scales back to level, right? And then coming from the deficit that I'm coming from, it's like I have to be, in order for me to feel good about what I'm doing today, I have to be a better me today than I was yesterday. And that gets progressively easier, but without direction, it is impossible. It was impossible for me. And direction looked different for me than it did that for people that can accept the traditional pathway of recovery. I was going to meetings. I had a sponsor. I had a really good sponsor. Um, I was going to multiple meetings a day. I was doing step work, and I was just miserable. And that's kind of how I like stumbled onto what I'm doing today.
And I think I like what you said about like making all this be worth something.
Yeah.
I think that's how I felt too. It was like I didn't just go through all of this 12 years of suffering, you know, for me personally, and my son going through all this and lose everything I had to not have this mean something, to not make an impact somewhere with all of this. I need it to that's part of a driver for me too. I need this to be for something.
Yeah.
And that's got kind of wakes me up every day, and also just seeing people suffering. I can't. That hurts me too much to see that and not do something about it.
Yeah.
Kind of go into action. Well, thank you for being with me today. I want people to know how to find you. Um, yeah, everybody knows. Well, it's going to be on my channel, this podcast, so they'll know how to get to my website. But I wanted to bring out. I think you are Harmony.
Harmony Grove Behavioral Health. And you can try to Google
Website.
that, but we have no SEO
It's
going
Harmony
on right now.
Grove BH.
So it's
right?
harmonygrovebhtx.com.
TX, okay.
Or you can type in harmonygrovebh.com, and it'll direct you to the same place. We're in the middle of changing that domain. So either one will get you there. We have our office phone number on there. You can get a hold of us there. If you need help, reach out. We can get you into a higher level of care if that's what you need. And if you don't need a higher level of help, we can help you get to where you need to go. Right? We can have a call, and if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me there too. They will direct you to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate the
Thank
time.
you. I appreciate it.
And thank you guys too. We're gonna close out with kind of share this and like this podcast and subscribe for more. I know Matthew's going to have his own podcast as well soon, so I'll put that link out here when it's up and ready.
Yeah, I'll have you on.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That would be great.